Brett Siegel recently released his updated kind of draft findings and things going on around the NBA draft. And we got a couple of news and notes in regards to the Bulls and their draft plans. One that includes a couple of players that we didn't expect, and even mentioned that the Chicago Bulls could trade up. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And the Bulls, once again, are linked to Jonathan Kuminga, but with the twist this time. We're going to talk about it all and more on today's Chicago Bulls Central. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Der Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And we got some stuff from Brett Siegel in regards to the draft. So Brett Siegel comes out with this periodically. I think it's like once a week, once every couple of weeks, in which he talks about some of the stories and things that he's hearing around the NBA draft. Like with everything, take it all with a grain of salt. But he did say this: there's momentum building for Derrick Queen, one of the best front court prospects in this draft, to be selected between 10 and 14. Queen has been linked the most to the Chicago Bulls with the 12th pick, yet league sources indicate the Bulls are still evaluating a few other names in this spot to provide more athleticism and length to their roster. Now, we're going to stop there for a second, and we're going to get into three players that were mentioned who the Bulls are more likely to take according to Brett Siegel. Derrick Queen. I've made a lot about Derrick Queen. My thoughts on Derrick Queen have triggered some Derrick Queen fans, right? In regards to, I like Derrick Queen as a prospect. I don't necessarily like him for the Bulls, and that's because of the way that the Bulls' current play style fits out, right? You very rarely have three on-ball dominant players that can make an offense work. It's very rare on that. And then we talk about one of the Jonathan Kuminga trades. It causes even more issue there in regards to that. Now, Casey Johnson did say a little bit ago that Derrick Queen is not really on the Chicago Bulls board. When Brett Siegel says here that Derrick Queen has been most commonly linked to the Bulls, it's more by the mock drafts, right? It's more by those outlets than like insiders in Chicago. But Derrick Queen is a talent here, and I've said that even in my criticism of Derrick Queen. Again, it's not of the player, it's of the roster that we currently have and the play style that we currently have, with having two very ball dominant players and wanting Ahmad Buzelis to get a chance to grow in that area. So, that's what it comes down to. If the Bulls do end up drafting Derrick Queen, they're going to have to try to figure that out. They're going to have to try to make it work because he's used to being a very ball-dominant player. People have said, like, well, he's mini Jokic. It's like, okay, that's great, but Jokic has Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, two players who have played pretty solidly off ball. We don't have that. We have Josh Giddey and Kobe White, two players that thrive off driving. Like, people like to kind of talk about Kobe as if he's like this Ben Gordon type scorer. He's not. Like, he's not a microwave. He's not great in catch and shoot yet. He's not great coming off screens and shooting right away. He's a player that has to create and get in his rhythm by driving, creating there. He can get hot from three, but he's not that short, that just three-point shooter. We've seen that two different times with Kobe White. Billy Donovan has tried to make him just a jump shooter, and it hasn't worked. So that's where a little bit of the concern comes in at when it comes down to, Derrick Queen coming to this roster, the talent himself. And if the Bulls are betting on the best talent that's on the board at that place, Derrick Queen is probably that. And maybe you just figure it out at that point in time and you open yourself up to any type of roster moves. If at that point in time, it's Josh Giddey, who we heard per yesterday that Josh Giddey's the one that the Bulls are ready to build around, right? As far as, as they continue to rebuild this roster. And so the question may be, maybe not how Kobe, Giddey, and Queen fit. Maybe at that point, the question becomes about how Josh Giddey and Derrick Queen fit together and how much you can make that work. Maybe Kobe's just not part of your future at that point. But I think that's a tough decision that they'll have to ask. And my concern about it comes in which is AK just going to look at it and just try to make it fit like he did with Zach, DeMar, and Vooch. Three players that all had really good statistical years. I think their second year together, the third year together. But the team suffered. The team did not win a lot of games. The team was not this great offensive team. While they had individually solid seasons, they weren't. And that could come down to Billy Donovan's coaching or whatever else, how you look at that. But that's just one of the concerns that were Derrick Queen. But let's keep it going. Brett Siegel later on in this he says that Egor Demin, Carter Bryant, and Asa Newell are three players who have also come up in conversations about the Bulls. Multiple sources have also relayed intel about Chicago exploring the possibility of moving up in this year's draft should Bailey be passed on by the 76ers or another team that trades up with the third pick. Pause there. Pause there, right? We'll get into the three prospects that they're named, but is Brett Siegel saying here that the Chicago Bulls are going to look to trade up if Brett Siegel falls past number 3? I'm sorry, if Ace Bailey falls past number 3? Now, that is that would be a huge swing here. And I don't know if the Bulls have the assets to get that done. Like, make no mistake about it. When you look at Ace Bailey, 6'8", 203 pounds, he's slated to go third in this draft, maybe if the 76ers don't pass up on him. But is Brett Siegel saying something here that we have not heard about as far as a target that the Bulls have if they try to trade up in this draft? And that's a large swing. Like, it's not like you're moving up 1 or 2 spots. You're talking about going up from 12 to either 4 or 5 at that point in time. Now, the Charlotte Hornets, I don't know. I have not heard very much about them trading out of that number 4. I have heard about them wanting to trade up, but I haven't really heard a lot about them trading out of number 4. The Utah Jazz, I don't see them trading out at number 4, not for necessarily the assets that the Bulls have. So what is that about, right? Like, that's where my mind goes to. Like, I get it. Ace Bailey is a great prospect to have on your board. Make no mistake about it. But if you want to trade up, if you see Ace Bailey falls past number 3, okay. I hear you there, but I don't necessarily see how that happens in regards to it. Now, he goes on to say this: how the Bulls could possibly move up from the 12th pick to have a chance at selecting Bailey would have to be the ultimate question should the Rutgers star fall in the top 5. None of the 3 rebuilding teams beyond the 76ers pick, Charlotte, Utah, and Washington, would hold much interest in anything the Bulls have to offer except draft compensation in future years. It is tough to see a Bailey Bulls scenario playing out in this year's draft. Yeah, because what? First of all, Bulls fans have not been that lucky. We ain't been that lucky in years. So you're talking about if the Bulls were to make a swing somehow and move up to get Ace Bailey, everything that I said, I'll shut the hell up on. Everything that I've said bad about this front office, I will shut the hell up on and call myself an idiot. If the Bulls find a way to trade up and get Ace Bailey in this draft with the upside, the off-ball defense, the athleticism, a really good pull-up threat when it comes all down to it as well, you talk about having a 3-4 matchup with Ace Bailey at the 3 and Midas Buzelis at the 4, I'm not even going to let myself start fantasizing about what that could look like in a Bulls uniform because it's unlikely to happen. Brett Siegel says it's unlikely to happen. But just the fact that he's pointing out that the Bulls are a team that's been mentioned as possibly wanting to trade up, it's just, what are you going to be willing to give? Are you willing to give 2 future firsts plus moving up from 12 just to get Ace Bailey? Now, that's the type of aggressive swing that you want teams to make when they're trying to become a playoff team, right? You would love to say that your team could make that type of move to become that type of team, and that's what that would be doing. You then be adding Ace Bailey to Josh Giddey and Midas Buzelis and, those type of players. We'll see if we keep Kobe White in that type of move. I don't know if I'm sure we'd have to include Kobe White if that were to happen, but let me know what you guys think on that. Hearing that now that Ace Bailey is somebody that the Bulls are looking to see if he falls past number 3 so they could trade up to get him, how are you enticing Charlotte or Utah or Washington? Like, what level of pick compensation or player are you giving them to make that happen? Because I don't see it, but hey, I would love to say, come back here on draft night and say the Chicago Bulls freaking did it. They did it. They found a way to move up and get Ace Bailey. That would be a move in the likes that we have not seen in quite a while. So, not for the Chicago Bulls. We haven't seen that for the Bulls in a long time. So, let's see what happens there. Let me know what you guys think on that part. But the 3 players that Brett Siegel did mention that are most commonly thought of and talked about around the Bulls being interested in Egor Demin. We've talked a lot about Egor, what he brings as a point guard. I think Egor is a guard. I mean, I say just point guard, but is a guard that brings length. He brings solid rebounding. He brings passing, and not really a great 3-point shooter. And a lot of overlap between him and Josh Giddey's skill sets. Now, I would say this with offensively, as far as passing wise, you'd have 2 really good passers and playmakers out there, which kind of makes it easier on everybody else to kind of do their thing. But I still have some questions on, all right, we've talked about how restricted and how the type of team you have to build around, even if Giddey and Kobe are your backcourt. If that's Giddey and Egor, you have to do that even more so. You have to have more 3-point shooting, more defense. So it's just a little bit of a question there, but it is something that we've heard a lot around the Chicago Bulls is Egor Demin being involved and on the board for the Chicago Bulls. Now, Carter Bryant, which is funny enough, I talked about Carter Bryant yesterday, and I asked the question, why isn't he more commonly? Because he just seems like somebody that is the type of player that AK has loved in prior years, right? The athletic player that's kind of raw, that has really good upside, 6'6" with a 7-foot wingspan, has the potential to be a really good 3-and-D athlete at that next level, and a player that I love there. But first of all, I think he's going to be off the board before the Chicago Bulls pick, personally. I don't know if he'll still be there at number 12 and fall that low, but Carter Bryant is a player that has some talent, has tremendous upside, both defensively and shooting-wise. And the offense, I think the offense is going to have to come along, but that three-point shooting is going to be legit. The catch and shoot is going to be legit right away. He's going to need more on-ball reps, I think, to really develop to what he can eventually be as a scorer at the NBA level. But I like the kid for the talent that he has for sure. I know that he drums up some of that Patrick Williams PTSD for players, but Carter Bryant he's not the mentality, right? He doesn't have the lack of desire to be great like a Patrick Williams, so I'm not necessarily worried about that. Like I always say, the problem isn't Patrick Williams' skill set. That's not the problem. You want a player with that skill set in the NBA. The problem is, and it's not even Patrick Williams' skill level, it's the fact that Patrick Williams doesn't care seemingly about basketball. He doesn't care enough to be great. That's what it comes down to. That's what hurts P. Will the most. So, take that for what you will. And then Asa Newell. Asa Newell's been mocked to the Bulls since basically he came out to work out here in Chicago. And he makes a lot of sense for the Bulls. I think that you still have questions on if he's going to be able to play center long term, right? Because that's kind of if he ends up being power forward, then okay, what does that combination with him and Modest look like? But Asa could do everything defensively. Talk about switch everything. He's probably going to be able to guard 3 through 5 in the NBA. As far as rotate on those guys, if he gets caught on switches, things like that. His rebounding is a little bit questionable with the wingspan, but he has a solid enough rebounding rate. So that's what comes into it with Asa. So I listen, Asa Newell coming into this process, Asa Newell was one of my favorite prospects for the Chicago Bulls. Man, and watching other players and Thomas Sorber and those type of guys, with longer wingspans, more traditional size. Thomas Sorber has I think the second highest standing reach in this draft, second only to Kaman Malawak, right? Despite the height concerns that might be there for him. So that's something that I look at there with Asa Newell. I love Asa. And, if the Bulls get Asa Newell, I'm sure that they'll figure it out. The question nobody really questions is if Asa is going to be a solid NBA player. I think his defensive ability, his upside to stretch the floor, all those things are there. And so people have a lot of confidence in his ability to be an NBA player. The problem is the situation that he goes through, the position that he needs to play. That's where the questions start coming in for a player like Asa Newell. But again, I like Asa. If it is what it is, we'll see. But that's the latest from Brett Siegel in regards to the Chicago Bulls. Some things that we didn't know, some things that we had heard prior to that. Let me know what you guys think on all that down below. Now, the next set comes from Mike Soto of Hoops Hype, where he talks about the Bulls and Heat once again being linked to Jonathan Kuminga. So he says this, with the 22-year-old set to become a restricted free agent in the offseason, the uncertainty with Golden State is apparent. He mentioned how question of fit since Jimmy Butler trade, the up and down relationship with head coach Steve Kerr, and the trade talks could head for a collision course of for a change of scenery. Kuminga is looking for an expanded and consistent role moving forward, league sources have told Hoops Hype. The Chicago Bulls and Miami Heat are two teams to monitor as potential sign and trade candidates for Kuminga, league sources told Hoops Hype. With that in mind, the Warriors have also not ruled out the possibility of retaining Kuminga, sources have said. Now, retaining Kuminga is something that they're going to float out because that maintains them having a little bit of leverage in negotiating. They can say, well, we're fine keeping him. So, we'll match any offer. But you can try to not necessarily force, but you can entice a team to complete a sign and trade so they can eliminate that chance of the Golden State Warriors matching the contract, which is perfectly fine when it comes down to it. Now, the Heat and the Bulls are mentioned for different reasons, right? The Nets were once mentioned, but it seemed the Nets basically came out and said they are not looking to sign anybody to any offer sheets. They're going to use their cap space they want to use their cap space to obtain more assets, be a third team in a trade, things like that. And so the Heat come in the fact that they are a team that does want Kevin Durant. Reportedly, they are also on Kevin Durant's list, but if they strike out on Kevin Durant, then they could make that pivot towards Jonathan Kuminga, and this could happen sooner rather than later. Apparently, the Phoenix Suns want to get that Kevin Durant trade done sooner rather than later, maybe even before the draft. If they can get that done, it is what it is. And Jonathan Kuminga is viewed right now, and this one is direct quote from Mike Soto in this, is that on their and Durant who's on their wish list ahead of Kuminga, who's viewed as the fallback option to the two superstars. So, that's where they come at right now. We're looking at Kevin Durant. They're looking at Giannis Antetokounmpo if he becomes available. Doesn't seem like Giannis is going to be able to. So that's the thing there. With the Bulls getting younger in their roster, right? Jonathan Kuminga being 23, he offers some of that upside with young experience that AK has mentioned wanting before. So we could see what happens there. But this is one of the most consistent rumors this offseason. And so it feels like it may be the most valid. Now, I say feels like because it may not be. Teams could just be looking at the fact that the Bulls have some cap space. They're going younger, and they're saying that the Bulls have an interest. But with how much has been talked about, I can't blame anybody for thinking, no, this has to be more real, right? Because, like, how much have the Bulls been mentioned as a team that's interested in Jonathan Kuminga? And that's perfectly fair. And so we'll see what shakes out there, I think, overall. But keep looking out for that. I think watching what the Bulls do in the draft, what position they draft, because if they draft a wing, there's really no spot for Kuminga. If they get a big, if they go guard, we shall see. I don't know what's going to happen if they go guard, but let me know what you guys think on that. Both rumors down below. All right, let's get into the voicemail, man. We got one voicemail. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, this is Reginald. Sorry about always calling with the messed up connection. I'm usually calling at work, and the internet is spotty at best. But here you talk about Desmond Bane being traded to Orlando for four first-round picks is insane to me. Not because Desmond Bane is a bad player, but teams are willing to sacrifice so much draft capital actually makes me think that we as Bulls fans may have been shortchanging Kobe White. Because while I don't think Kobe White's better than Desmond Bane, I think we've all thought, okay, if we get one first rounder unprotected, that's good enough. But maybe he is worth two. Because a guy who can give you 19.3 rebounds and like 4 assists on the regular has value. But I really wanted to talk to you about this whole extension to Billy Donovan. Like you said, you all expected it. It's frustrating. Some people might say he's not a bad coach, but he has his limitations. And I don't see him getting really the Bulls out of the second round, no matter who's on this roster, because he's going to find a way to get himself out-coached by the actual elite top-tier coaches. The guys who, if you could name 6 coaches better than Billy, all 6 of them would beat him in the playoffs, and he wouldn't have any way to overcome that. He's had way better team than this Bulls front office can put together, and he's lost with those guys. He's lost with Hall of Famers on his roster. But, like you said, we all know this. He's going to get that extension because the Risers like him, and that's not how you build a championship franchise. It's by hiring people you like. But once again, as Bulls fans, we're used to it. Hopefully the Bulls do more than just stand pat this off season. But like you said, that's probably what's going to happen. Another, first round, but another playoff play-in exit, and hopefully, I guess the Bulls will just have to find a way to. Bulls fans just going to have to get used to the idea of being a mid-franchise. Sad to say, hurts to say, but that's probably what we're looking forward to for the next couple of years. But thanks for hearing me vent.
First of all, listen, I completely understand. That's why I said, you don't have to rush it. Wait till you get into some good reception. This was a really good call quality, so I appreciate that. But yeah, Desmond Bane traded for 4 picks. You're absolutely right. Like Desmond Bane being a player that's done what he's done. He did it in the Western Conference, and he was on a team that won way more over the last 4 or 5 years than the Chicago Bulls. Just period, right? Now, when you look at the what that means for Kobe, and you have a great point there is that while maybe not 4, you're definitely looking at maybe multiple first-round picks for Kobe White, and the Bulls wouldn't be wrong for asking for that. I don't think that they would, and that's what really good franchises would do. Like I said before, aim high and let the teams talk you down and find somewhere to meet between the middle. But now, if the Bulls look at this Desmond Bane trade and they're going any trade negotiations with Kobe White, and they say, well, this conversation starts at 2 first. If that's what they say, it starts at 2 first. One of them can be protected, but it starts at 2 first. I'm not mad at that. Let the teams talk you down. Let them come with a better offer that makes you have to think, okay, maybe we're still getting a lot of what we need in this offer. Let them do that, and we shall see. And again, hopefully, as I have to say every time, hopefully they don't move Kobe. Hopefully they find a way to stop changing Kobe's role. Let Kobe keep growing, and let's see what's going to be at that point. Now, as far as Billy Donovan's extension, he does get out-coached regularly, right? And the thing that I look at it is that Billy Donovan had a team with Hall of Famers on it and couldn't get far. What's the chance of the Bulls ever having a roster better than that? And then how far can he take them, right? But again, all this is kind of questions that we're asking ahead of time. It's going to come at some point. I think that the Bulls, as they improve the team and they can stop blaming the state of the roster on where they are, and hopefully AK and Eversley will wake up at some point in time. I think the question around Billy Donovan is just period. It's like, how many times have you seen him get outcoached by coaches that are better than him, but also sometimes by the simplicity of a game plan from coaches that are maybe not better X's and O's coaches, but they can make an adjustment. So that's what happens. Billy Donovan's going to be here though for a foreseeable future. His extension's probably going to be 2 or 3 years if I just had to guess off the top of my head, and we'll see what shakes out at that point. But thank you for leaving that voicemail, Reggie. That's my time for today, guys. Make sure you guys are following us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullscentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you ready if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.